Economic downturns are difficult for everyone, but for billionaires they can be disastrous. These men and women had it all and were worth billions, including multi-million-dollar yachts, mega mansions for residences, private jets, fleets of cars, and more. However, a series of poor decisions, bad luck and other factors caused them to lose everything. We rounded up 8 notable billionaires who went bankrupt, as well as the bizarre tales of how they lost it all. Number 8. The Rise and Fall of Patricia Kluge. This is the kind of story that inspires films. The sad ones, that is. A lovely young lady marries a billionaire, divorces and invests her large settlement in a well-known company, only to lose it all. This is Patricia Kluge's true life story, not a fabricated film plot. She was the epitome of high society before losing everything in the 2008 housing market crash. Patricia met her second husband, John W. Kluge, on a trip to New York City as a former heiress and model. John Kluge, once the richest man in the United States worth $5 billion, wedded Patricia in 1981. When she divorced John 9 years later, Patricia accepted a hefty payout of $1 million per year, plus the couple's vast Albemarle land. Kluge and her third husband, William Bill Moses, funded the Kluge Estate Winery and Vineyard on 960 acres of land near Albemarle in the hopes of turning her property into a successful business. The estate's wines graced the tables of socialites and influential people around the world, and she did enjoy a brief period of prosperity. Even Chelsea Clinton's wedding featured Kluge wines. However, Patricia lost everything after a series of bad investments, pouring money into her estate just before the housing market collapsed. After Bank of America confiscated the Albemarle winery in 2011, Donald Trump purchased it for a fraction of its original value. Kluge tried to save herself from bankruptcy by auctioning off all of her fine jewelry and other valuables, but after that failed, she filed for Chapter 7 in June 2011. Number 7. The Liquor Mogul Vijay Mallya. Vijay Mallya is a former billionaire and Indian businessman who is currently facing extradition from the United Kingdom to India on charges of severe financial fraud. After taking over his father's mid-sized business at the age of 28, Mallya, the king of good times, became India's wealthiest liquor tycoon. He grew the company into a multi-billion-dollar corporation, amassing a personal fortune of $1.5 billion in the process. His problems began when the debt on his Kingfisher Airlines began to climb. He was forced to resign as a chairman after losing his controlling interest in United Spirits. Mallya left India with millions of dollars in debt and sought asylum in the United Kingdom. He went from billionaire to a criminal in a matter of months. Number 6. The Fall of Sean Quinn. Sean Quinn's story is a true rags-to-riches success tale. He started out in 1973 quarrying gravel from his family farm and selling it to local builders. Out of this, Quinn Cement was born, and his Quinn Group grew into everything from construction materials and hotels to insurance and plastics. He was once regarded as Ireland's single wealthiest person. He did, however, put all of his capital into the Anglo Bank, which was forced to stop doing business in 2008 after illegally offering financial aid to individuals for the purposes of purchasing shares. Quinn lost the majority of his £2.8 billion fortune and had been sentenced to 9 weeks in prison for contempt of court in late 2012. In September 2019, Kevin Lunny, a prominent director of Quinn Industrial Holdings, was kidnapped and beaten, demonstrating that there is still a lot of animosity against Quinn and his business. Number 5. The Fall of Silicon Valley star Elizabeth Holmes. Theranos, a blood testing company and its owner Elizabeth Holmes, had been on the top of the world in 2014. Theranos was a groundbreaking concept conceived by a woman hailed as a visionary who dubbed herself a female Steve Jobs at the time. It was one of Silicon Valley's unicorn companies valued at an estimated $9 billion, and Holmes was indeed the world's greatest female self-made billionaire. Her tenure as a billionaire, however, was brought to an end as official investigations lingered over her company, alleging that it had misled investors regarding their new revolutionary blood testing technology. Her personal wealth and reputation were also severely harmed as a result of these charges. Forbes and Fortune listed Holmes as one of the world's most disappointing leaders. The Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services also barred her from holding any role in her company for 2 years. Number 4. Bjorgolfur Gudmundsson. Bjorgolfur Gudmundsson was the second Icelander to ever become a billionaire, with his son being the first. Despite a track record as a shady businessman, he was once the CEO of Iceland's second largest shipping company. The line went bankrupt in 1985 when it was discovered that they had been lying about their earnings in the years leading up to the bankruptcy. Bjorgolfur and his co-workers were charged with 450 counts of bribery and embezzlement, which is a significant number. Bjorgolfur was sentenced to a year of probation, but he was not about to give up. He moved to Russia and started a brewery with his son to rebuild his fortune. Goodmanson's Bravo Brewery was another success, and they ultimately sold it for $400 million. They spent about as much to purchase a majority stake in Iceland's second-largest bank in 2002. It was because of this change that they became billionaires. They were known as Iceland's wealthiest men and for their charitable contributions, but this can only go on for so long. The global banking crisis struck Iceland hard in 2008, just as it did the United Kingdom. The Icelandic government declined to bail out the banks because it disapproved of their investments. Bjorgolfur found himself over $700 million in debt and then had to declare bankruptcy as the country's financial system was on the verge of collapse. Number 3. Eike Batista. Eike Batista was a multi-billionaire oil magnate who amassed a fortune of $30 billion. In 2012, he was the world's 7th wealthiest individual. He was $900 million in debt just 2 years later. He was a gold dealer as a young man, obtaining gold on the cheap from the Amazon. He'd then resell it in big cities for a higher profit. This paid off and he invested the proceeds in a number of gold and silver mines. Later, he became interested in natural gas and oils as his wealth increased, quickly becoming Brazil's richest man, rising alongside his country's economy, which was based largely on natural resources. However, the valuation of his companies plummeted as the precious metals industry tanked and his oil firm failed to pump enough barrels. He quickly lost everything because his net worth was tied to the company's valuations. To make matters worse, in 2017, Batista was arrested and charged with bribing officials in order to gain access to resources. He was convicted and sentenced to prison. Number 2. Allen Stanford. Robert Allen Stanford is an American Antiguan former banker who was accused of a Ponzi scheme in 2012 after a $7 billion securities fraud investigation. Stanford had misled his 50,000 investors about the amount of competent management they were getting. He and his associates were also accused of working with drug cartels in Mexico. After being sentenced to a 100-year prison term in 2012, he is now penniless and behind bars. Number 1. Bernard Madoff. Bernie Madoff is generally acknowledged as the mastermind behind the country's biggest Ponzi scheme. He earned his fortune as a high-flying financial analyst at Bernard L. Madoff Investment Securities. After investors demanded a total of $7 billion in returns, his massive Ponzi scheme began to unravel. Madoff had just $200 to $300 million left to offer at the time. Federal investigations revealed a $64.8 billion scam after his scheme collapsed during the financial crisis of 2008, when he was unable to gain further clients due to the lack of liquidity in the markets. According to reports, Madoff had amassed billions of dollars in personal capital during his operating years. He is currently serving a federal prison sentence in Butner, North Carolina, and has apparently applied for his release due to terminal kidney failure and the spread of the coronavirus. So far, prosecutors have declined to let him go. That's our video about 8 billionaires who lost it all. I hope you enjoyed it, and if so, then give us a thumbs up and ring the notification bell button for our latest updates. If you have any ideas for videos you'd like to see, please let us know. Thank you for watching this one. We'll see you next time.